Hello and welcome. My name is Meredith Burks. I'm with Red Leaf Press, and we are happy to present this webinar, Higher Order Thinking Skills, with Steffen Saifer. He is the author of HOT Skills, Developing Higher Order Thinking in Young Learners, and Practical Solutions to Practically Every Problem. And I'm so happy that you're able to join us, Steffen. Do you mind giving us a little introduction?
Sure, thank you, Meredith. I appreciate being invited. I did many things in early childhood in my career, but I think the best thing I did was be a preschool teacher for those years. And that I was a Head Start director and a Head Start trainer and college instructor, but preschool teaching was my best. And my daughter to this day says, once a preschool teacher, always a preschool teacher.
That's great. And today you're going to talk us through a little bit about what higher order thinking is and its benefits. And yeah, maybe some examples of activities.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm going to go into HOT skills, and HOT, H-O-T, stands for higher order thinking. And I'm going to talk to you today about what it is, why it's important, and give a few examples of how to do it in fun and easy ways. So I wrote this book because my motivation was, in the hundreds of classrooms that I have seen in my career, I saw way too few examples of teachers using higher order thinking. Lots of examples of lower order thinking. So if we could bring up the taxonomy, Meredith, that would be great. And so you could see at the bottom is lower order thinking, and it's important, but I think teachers spend a little too much time on these types of things like following directions and rules and memorizing and counting and things like that. And also, they tend to use a lot of middle order thinking, especially with the slightly older students, like adding and subtracting or categorizing shapes by their sides and their angles and things like that. Yet not enough critical thinking skills and creative thinking skills. Another way to think about these is, in lower order thinking, information is taken in and sometimes given out, but it's not manipulated in any way. Middle order thinking are primarily logical thinking skills. That's really heavy in the curriculum in upper elementary and high school and even in college. And that is, information is utilized. But in higher order thinking, critical thinking skills has information transformed, and with creative thinking skills, information is actually created, is developed. So that's kind of an easy way to frame this kind of complicated idea. So I was concerned that teachers were missing opportunities to promote higher order thinking, critical and creative thinking in easy ways. So that was the motivation for writing this book. And let me give you a few examples. So in one example, I observed a teacher doing an activity where she pulled vegetables out of a bag, and the group of students would have to name each vegetable. They were nice fresh vegetables because the theme was autumn. And at one point she pulls out a long red vegetable and said, "What's this?" And the student said, "It's a pepper." And she pulls out a number of other vegetables and then pulls out a brown green vegetable and says, "What's this?" And the students say, "It's a pepper." And then she goes on pulling out more vegetables. And I was thinking, wow, you missed a great opportunity to go back and get that red pepper and that green pepper and hold them together and say, how did you know these were both peppers? That they look completely different. One is red, one's green, one's long and thin, and one's round and fat. And then begin a discussion around that to promote some forms of higher order thinking. Another example with younger kids was with 3 and 4-year-olds, and the teacher had, each child had a board book, and they were board books about colors. And each page had a picture like a tomato, and the teacher would say, "What's that?" Kids would say, "Tomato." "What color is it?" "It's red." Next page, "What's that?" "It's a leaf." "What color is a leaf?" "Green." "Bird." "Blue." On and on. And then there was a break, and he asked me for some feedback, and I said, "You know, when you were doing that, I had an idea that maybe you could ask them some questions that would promote them thinking a little bit deeper." And for example, you could have asked them, "Well, you know, the tomato is red. What's another food that's red?" That would be a beginning step. And then as they become used to those kinds of questions, you could ask something a little more difficult, like, "Can you think of a color that's not in the book?" And so he actually tried this, and the students had kind of a hard time doing it because it was really a different kind of question for them. So he took them outside where there were lots of flowers and colors and tried to get them to see a color that wasn't in the book. But it was getting a little too abstract for them. And so I encouraged him, just, give them more help, give them more guidance. They're not quite there yet, but they'll get there with practice and with opportunities, and keep giving them those opportunities. So, I said, here, point out a color. "Oh, this flower is pink. Was pink in the book?" Give them enough, just as much help as they need, but not more than is necessary, while you're helping them develop the ability to think in ways that nobody has asked them to think before. And here's a third example for second graders, where instead of having an assignment of doing a whole bunch of subtraction problems, that the teacher could have them work in pairs and come up with 4-story subtraction problems based on a soccer game or some other sport, or for the kids who aren't into sports, something like buying a banana at the store, or base it on baking cookies, and create their own problems. So in the process, they're doing some creative thinking, and they're also learning the subtraction, because they have to do the problems, and they could develop them and then exchange them within the class. So other students do each other's subtraction problems. So let me go into some things about why this is really important. One reason is that challenging students in this way shows respect for their intelligence, for their intellect. And they like to rise to those kinds of challenges. I've seen it over and over again. They get excited about learning. They get motivated to learn. They care about learning. And it reduces behavior issues because they're engaged in learning, and they're motivated. And here's something very important. It's also an equity issue. Critical thinking is a necessary skill to be able to look beyond surface appearances and to question assumptions. It's the antidote to biases and prejudices and stereotypes. And really, it's the only way to overcome those kinds of things, which are based on surface appearances. And also, creative thinking is needed in order to come up with kind of win-win solutions to conflicts and to avoid violence. Another important reason is it helps students learn to avoid thinking errors, such as jumping to a conclusion, or either or thinking where they think something is either right or it's wrong. It's good or it's bad. It's true or it's false. Very few things are that way, but thinking that way is very common. So they need to be able to get beyond that, because most things are nuanced in between, and higher order thinking is what's needed in order to get at those nuances. And critical thinking skills like parsing and evaluating help people avoid buying into fake news, being able to distinguish a fake Facebook post from a real Facebook post, right? It helps people avoid being easily fooled by advertisements, by spammers, by scammers, and all those other creepy people who try to trick us, take our money, among other things. And this is, rampant. It's very, very difficult. Even college students have a hard time distinguishing a fake from a real news, or an advertisement from real news, especially when they embed it. Advertising now is embedded into news sites. It's very sophisticated. So we need to develop those skills. And our education system really has not done a good job of this, as evidenced by, I rarely see, you'll rarely see in classrooms these higher order thinking skills being promoted. And we have to do that because we're too gullible, we're too taken in by fake news, and it's damaging not only to us, but to society as a whole. And I want people to know that I'm talking about some sophisticated things here, but even very young children are capable of a wide variety of higher order thinking skills at really surprisingly sophisticated levels. But they can do that because they've had lots of opportunities and lots of practice. And so teachers need to embed these activities and these kinds of questions into every activity that they do every day, throughout the day. And fortunately, it's easy to do, and they can make it fun. It's easy to make it fun. And the book is full of examples of enjoyable, challenging activities that promote a variety of higher order thinking skills. So I want to give you an example of something in the book that is an example of a cognitivity. There are thinking games in the book, and lots of examples, practical examples of how to implement this with young learners. So this is a cognitivity, and obviously it's a made-up word I made up of combining cognition and activity, and it's called a brain bait. So when I was a preschool teacher, I would hold up a book like this book here and say, "This is the story of Goldilocks and the three gorillas." And I'd wait for a response from the students, which often was the teachers really going crazy. And then I would say, "Okay, now don't let me fool you here, right? You have to determine whether I am trying to fool you or not, and what is really going on." So you're right. It's the story of Goldilocks and the three bears. And then throughout the book, I would occasionally throw in something to trick them. And therefore, I'm giving them practice in a fun way of figuring out what's true, what's not, what's real, what's not. And here's another brain bait called cheated. So this is a picture here of Meredith. If you will help me out here and you role play with me and be the student.
Yep.
So this is a picture of my cheetah.
No, that's not a cheetah.
Of course it's a cheater. You can't trick me.
No,
I
that's a
know it's a
dog.
cheater.
That's a dog.
Not a dog. You don't know what you're talking about. Come on. How could you kid? This is not a dog. It's a cheetah. I
No.
know.
Cheetahs have spots all over.
Yeah. So Sarah has spots. See the spots on her neck there? She's got
Oh,
spots.
they're not all over though.
Oh, but lots of things have spots all over, like Dalmatians. Yeah, you saw that movie, right? Dalmatians have spots, and this lady in a polka dot dress, she's got spots. Lots of things have spots. Can't fool me.
Cheetahs don't have floppy ears.
Oh, they don't?
Mm-mm.
Oh, really? Does,
Yeah.
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 Oh,
And they're
so
wild.
they're wild?
Yeah, they're not pets.
Sorry.
Dogs are a pet.
She's not wild. So she's not a cheetah?
Mm-mm.
No?
No.
Really? Oh, well, when I went to the pet store, they told me it was a cheetah. I think they cheated me. Cheated, get it? Never mind. So, okay. Well, you know what? Look how sweet she is. I love Zara. And it doesn't matter if she's got floppy ears or not, if she's a cheetah or a cat or, like you say, a dog or an elephant. Doesn't matter. She's a sweetheart. I love her. And that's what's important. Thanks for playing with me.
Yes, that is that's fun. That's very cute. And Zara is an adorable dog, not a cheetah. That's really, really a great example.
So, yeah. So let me just conclude by saying I appreciate that you've joined this webinar and have seen it, and I hope I have inspired you to learn more about promoting higher order thinking in young learners, and to do it, to try it yourself, and let's participate in bringing up a generation of children who are less gullible than we are, and will be able to know fake news, real news from fake news, and be kind and caring and civil, and not have biases and prejudices. And we can do that. We can contribute to that. And thank you very much for participating.
Yeah.
And Meredith, maybe you have some questions for me?
I do have a few questions here. Yeah, thank you so much, Steffen, for walking us through that. And I do want to highlight one of the things that you said earlier about incorporating hot skills. You know, it's not just a section of the day. It can be incorporated in every part of the day. And it should be multiple times. It has to be. What would you say is maybe the biggest hurdle for incorporating higher order thinking skills for an educator or a parent?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think the biggest hurdle is one that people aren't even aware of, and that is that it's just not emphasized in our curriculum, in our education system. It's not important. It's not seen as a part of the primary part of the job of a teacher to develop thinking skills, and that's too bad, because you can call it thinking literacy or mental literacy or something, and clearly it's just as important for success in life and being effective in life as text-based literacy or math-based literacy, numeracy, and that they don't realize that, and they're not expected to do it, and therefore they don't get a lot of training on it, and opportunities to practice it. I don't see too many courses in teacher education classes called promoting higher thinking in students, whether they're young or not. And it's missing. It's, as you know, HOT is missing, is MIA in our education system, and that's a real serious problem. We got to get it. We got to get it in there, and if teachers are expected to focus so much on text literacy and math literacy that they don't have time for it, well, embedded into all those lessons. That's a great thing about higher order thinking. You can use it, it fits with any curriculum, any curricular approach. You just put it in there. And lots of these activities in the book don't require materials or very few materials. And you could do it during transition times and really embed it throughout the day.
Yeah, and what I love about the book, Hot Skills, is that you do have the practical sort of brain baits and activities, but you have some theory in there as well. So really, I think it's a wonderful resource for, educators, parents, and also course adoption. So like you were saying, you don't see that a lot of classes being taught. So for, early childhood educators, getting their degrees, I think this is a great option for colleges.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering also if you can talk a little bit about the function of lower order skills and middle order skills as they relate to hot skills. And I can go back to that other page. If
to the taxonomy there, that would be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's two main ways that we can think about this. Lower order thinking and middle order thinking are often necessary prerequisites to doing higher order thinking. So if you're going to parse a story, and parse just means that you're really looking below the surface to find out what is really going on in this story. Ulterior motives is an example of being able to determine that, or hidden messages. That's what parsing does. So in order to do that, first you need to collect information, which is down in the lower order thinking. And then you need to, characterize what's in there and to make some deductions about what it could mean and look at some of the causes, connecting some of the causes and effects within that story. And then you can, from that basis, then you parse the information. And another thing to realize that's important here is that lower order thinking and middle order thinking are critically important skills. We don't diminish them. They are really necessary. I mean, you can't function in life without it. As somebody who's having a harder time as I get older, remembering where my car keys are, that's those lower order thinking skills are really important. So that's something that people need to be aware of. The problem is that in classrooms, in our education systems, in our curriculum, it's out of balance. It's almost entirely middle order and lower order thinking, unless you're taking a philosophy course or you're an art major or something like that. You're not, even in college courses, you're not going to get a lot of opportunities or expectations to use critical and creative thinking skills. So we need, I tell teachers, we need a little lot and a lot of hot. So that's what we need to do. We need to get a better balance so that there's a lot more emphasis on those two higher order thinking skills of critical and creative thinking, and less time spent with middle order and lower order thinking.
Great. Thank you so much. I do want to mention, we're going to skip right ahead here. Stefan, I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us and recording this webinar. And for all of you watching, thank you so much for staying with us. We are offering 20% off both of Stefan's books. So you can get Hot Skills, Developing Higher Order Thinking in Young Learners, and Practical Solutions to Practically Every Problem. Use code SAIFER, that's SAIFER20 on redleafpress.org. And Stefan, thank you again for writing these wonderful resources and being with us today.
You bet. Thank you so much.